Hello and welcome to this a quick Actor Thomas video with me, of course, Actor Thomas. Now, this week I just wanted to do a quick video to say I've heard a couple of interesting rumours this week about Endgame. Now, Avengers End Game, of course, will be coming out later on this year, and it will be the conclusion of a 10-year film franchise that will, of course, carry on after Avengers End Game anyway, but this will be like the end point of the first phase, really, if you want to call it like that. And I just wanted to, there's a few things I've heard, like obviously there's the talks about characters dying because obviously the actors' film contracts have coming up to the end of those films, which of course, if that's true, it is quite sad to think that some of these characters we may not see again. But in other words, of course, potentially it could be very good for the franchise. Obviously bringing in new actors, new characters that can really breathe more life back into these stories, which I think can never be a bad thing. But there are a few things that I think need to be talked about. First of all, the story about Captain America's death. Now, of course, a lot of people got very, very angry at the end of Captain America Civil War because we didn't see the death of Captain America Steve Rogers. But I can fully understand why they didn't kill Captain America off in that film, because it made no sense to do so at that time. I do agree that I think there is a very strong possibility that Captain America will die at the end of Avengers Endgame, because I think his character at that point it will make perfect sense to sacrifice that character and do what they do every couple of decades or years in comic books, and kill off a character, give them a bit of a break for a few years, and then bring them back in a really wonderful storyline. And I can imagine them doing that in a few years after Avengers Endgame, bringing back Steve Rogers and Chris Evans, being back. I think that would be superb. I really do. And I must say, I think it would be a really clever idea to do, particularly with the last Captain America story I was getting really into was the evil Hydra Captain America, about him being the Red Skull going back in time, brainwashing him and all this sort of stuff, and making him evil without being everyone knowing that he was evil. And it was a really, really clever, brilliant written story. And I think it was superb. And I can completely understand. Just imagine after maybe 5 or 6 films or whatever it may be, that by that point it would probably be at least around 9 years. They bring him back and he's evil, or for at least one film he is evil, and then he gets brought back as a nice guy at the end, like they did in the comic book. I think that would be superb. Another suggestion I heard, which I actually think is quite clever, is the story of I can't remember what it's called in the comic books, but there's a story at one point that Bruce Banner and the Hulk actually separate. So Bruce Banner can live as Bruce Banner, and the Hulk can live as the Hulk, and they actually can be themselves 24 hours at a time without having to worry about disrupting the other one, which I think is actually quite a clever idea. I think that would be quite good if that could actually happen. Or potentially the other one is Professor Hulk. I think that was what it's called. It's one basically where the Hulk is the Hulk all of the time. So Bruce Banner never comes out of the Hulk body, but he is the most Bruce Banner of all the Hulks that there are, which I think is actually really quite a clever, which makes obviously that character a lot more interesting, which I think would be superb. And you kind of got an image of that in Thor Ragnarok, where obviously being such a long time being the Hulk, he was able to develop, which I think is really, really clever. I like that idea. And I must say, actually, one of the other ones I've heard about is obviously the bringing back of Quicksilver, which I think it was a wrong decision to kill off Quicksilver, Pietro Maximoff, as early as they did in Avengers Age of Ultron. That's just my opinion. But I think that character is worth a lot more than what they did with him in that film. I think it would be quite interesting to see, if they did bring him back, how they could increase that character, how they could make that character relevant, which I think would be important. I also think it would be interesting to see the journey that Wanda has gone on since Age of Ultron to now, and see how, because obviously the journey she's on has been brought upon by the fact her brother's been killed. You know, and that's made her a much stronger, much more powerful, much more involved character than she was beforehand. I think, just imagine bringing him back into the story could either make her revert back to what she was before, or even make her stronger. And I think that would be really, really interesting. I think that would be quite a clever sort of way of challenging that character. So that's really good. Finally, the last one I probably want to talk about is what is going to happen to Tony Stark. I don't care. You know what I'd actually love to see happen? I would love Tony Stark to actually just stop. I would love Tony Stark just basically just say, right, I've had enough. I'm not going to carry on. Once the world has been set back to normal and everything's normal again, I'm giving up. I think that would be wonderful. Just imagine that. Just imagine Tony Stark saying, right, I've had enough. Me and Pepper are going away. We're going to go back down to California. We're going to live the rest of our lives happily. That's the end of it. Just imagine that. And obviously, I think that would, people say that's a crap ending for the character that started off the MCU. And you're probably true. It is probably a crap ending. But just to think that all of the stuff Tony Stark has been through, all the stuff Pepper's been through because of Tony, and the idea that after this one final earth-shattering event, after that's all been put back to right and safe and sound again, they're able to say, right, we've had enough. We're not doing this anymore. We're out of this game. I just think that would be an interesting counterbalance to everything that Tony's done in all the films up to this point. And maybe, obviously, bring him back in a couple of years, a bit like what I said about Captain America, as more of a consultant or a little bit more of a backseat character, because he's still a very important character. And I think he can still give a lot more stuff to all the characters that are inside in the MCU still. But I think there's a lot more characters now that could maybe fill his shoes. So maybe it'd be good if he did take a step back and maybe wasn't so integral to the whole ensemble story. Anyway, a couple of honourable mentions I want to talk about. Hawkeye. I just want to see Hawkeye do some badass shit again. I think he's such a wonderful. I think Jeremy Renner does such a wonderful job as that character. Anyway, I think the character himself is wonderful. I really do. I think Hawkeye is quite a cool character in his own right. I think he just makes. He's the everyman to this event that is the MCU, and he's the one that a lot of people see as their way into this, which I think is so important. And I just think I just think the way he was doing it in Avengers Assemble, Age of Ultron, I just think has been superb. I'm looking forward to what he did in Civil War was also brilliant. I think it's such a shame that he wasn't shown in Infinity War. I think that was a mistake. I think that could have been an interesting kind of character to show. Obviously, I can understand they're probably going to try and explain why that didn't happen in End Game, but that's beyond the point. Next one, Scarlet Witch. No, not Scarlet Witch, sorry. Black Widow. I think Black Widow is just superb. I think if the rumours are true about her getting her own standalone film, brilliant, superb, needs to happen, definitely needs to happen, because not only is Scarlett Johansson an absolutely wonderful actress, she plays that character absolutely wonderfully. The character itself is superb. You can't get, I don't think there's, without a character not actually having any superpowers, she is just brilliant. She really is. If that character had superpowers, it would just be too much. But the idea of it basically being, she is just an average person that just trains and has been trained very well, I think is superb. And I think if she gets her standalone film, this is going off topic a little bit really, but I do think it needs to be 50-50. It needs to be 50-50 in the present and 50% flashbacks. I really do. I think it'd be a lot more interesting to see a little bit more about what we saw in Age of Ultron with the Red Room and finding out a little bit more about her training. I still want to find out about this Budapest event. The whole Budapest event between her and Hawkeye. I think that would be superb to find out about. Everything else, I just think it would just be superb. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm sorry it's going to be a short one. I'm sorry it went on a little bit. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please either like, a comment, or subscribe. If you like, you can become one of my patrons. The link is down below. And as always, I'll do, at the end of each and every one of my videos, I'll give you a little salute and say goodbye. Goodbye.